and welcome to another video. This is Kevin, also known as AKAAWOL, and I don't know, perhaps you're familiar with this, perhaps you're not. What this is basically how I'm able to gauge out the size of a bag. Each one of these groups is a different type of string that I have. These ones came from Daiso. This is DMC, and this is the stuff out of China. And while they all look relatively the same, you can see that there is there's just a slight size difference. And if you multiply that size difference times the number of loops that you have going around the bag, you'll find that that's pretty significant. So the goal here today is to take these and to add them to this. Now, I don't know if you saw the previous video of where I did the neon bag, but I kind of felt like this stuff was like of a different size, and that's why I wanted to add it to this. Now, if you're not familiar with this, I'll leave a link in the description that gets you to where I share all the math involved in making the a bag based on what you have. So basically you make something like this, and then from there you can actually figure out exactly the number of strings to make the size bag you wanted. Now, in order to get them all kind of chain linked up like this, right? And basically I went each time, I don't know why, I went, big, small, big, small, big, small. So I'm going to just stay with that. I'm going to have to use my needle and string again, which, if you hadn't guessed, this thing kind of comes in handy. So I'm just going to use that to pull this through there. And of course it's not going to want to cooperate. There it goes. All right. So yeah, this is just adding one extra little level of difficulty in making it, but whatever, at the end of the day it is a thing. So now I'll just make my little piece here, and I have no plan as to how the colors are supposed to be done. As far as I'm concerned, that doesn't even really matter, because I'm not, this isn't like something that I'm looking to sell or anything else. This is just about knowing how much bigger or smaller this stuff is from the rest of my string. And that's kind of especially important because the first time around I ended up getting 144 skeins of this stuff, and I now have even more coming out. I forget how many, a lot. So I plan on making a bigger bag essentially. And so basically I need this in order to figure out like the right kind of size. I suppose, like as I'm thinking about, like as I say that now, I'm like, I suppose by right I could just wing it, just say, okay, I'm going to do 200 strings, or I'm going to do 250 strings, or whatever, and just live with that size. And that's not wrong. If that's the approach you want to take, I say go for that. There's nothing wrong with that. I did it with the big carpet bag thing, where that one was, I think it was like 400 strings or something crazy. So yeah, you can totally do that. However, there are times where you're like, oh, I want to make something for my cell phone, or I want to make something that will hold, my phone, my umbrella, my wallet, whatever. That's what this is about. This is about trying to find that reasonable size to do the things that you want to do. And a lot of this came from the fact that my very first bag was a pretty decent size. My wife said, yeah, make me one of those. And I was like, great, I can do that. And then when I went to go do it, I changed the string from the really inexpensive Daiso string to doing the much cheaper stuff out of China. And the size difference was, it was huge. I took what would have been a reasonable size bag, and it ended up being this giant purse. And as a result, my wife didn't want to use it. She just absolutely hated the thing. It was just too big for her. She didn't want to carry it around. And I was devastated because it took me like 3 months. It was like this really super hard pattern. Here, I'll include a picture. There you go. So, super hard pattern as far as I was concerned. Took me 3 months to make, and it now sits in a closet, just never getting used. So, yeah, more than slightly disappointing. It was a huge disappointment. So, whatever. Live and learn. And, yeah, and as far as living and learning, it was a big experience. It was a big thing, you know, and that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. Is I don't think that you guys should have to go through that experience just to realize, like, oh, these strings have a difference. And, you know, and when you mix them, if you mix, say, this neon stuff with the Chinese or with the DMC, you might actually see there to be some kind of a huge difference as far as like depending on the pattern, like where you're putting the neons in it, it might kind of shrink down in an area and then expand somewhere else, so it gets kind of wonky. And that won't be your fault. That'll be the string's fault. And some patterns will loan themselves well to this, and others will not. And I don't really have the means by which to go into which patterns would work here, but I'm sure with a little bit of imagination or some experimentation on your part, you'll figure out which ones would work and which ones won't. So you'll notice the last two on either side of this I have the colors mixed. And that's because I kind of just wanted to use the strings sort of evenly. So that way I wasn't like taking away from some other projects, and as opposed to like choosing to do a couple extra colors, whatever. So this just kind of works out for me. Like, again, it really doesn't matter. It's about the string size and not the pattern itself. Although, of course, I am going to go with the same basic pattern that I had in the other ones that I made. So kind of keeping it consistent there, at least. So anyways, yeah, I know that a bunch of the knotters are using, like, say, crochet thread, or they're using I don't know, just different stuff, the pearl cottons, that kind of stuff. I definitely recommend doing something like this. It's something that you'll keep, and you can keep it for years, right? And it will always kind of come in handy if you're trying to get to a particular size, even if it's just a bracelet or you're just trying to whatever. However, you do kind of want to tag it. I mean, as far as me knowing that one is the Daiso colors and one is the DMC, yeah, I think it would have been a whole lot handier if I found some kind of way of tagging it. I might even try to find something to add on there later on to kind of mark which ones are which, just as a way of preventing any kind of problems in the future. So we'll see. Thought about using leather, you know, because that was something that kind of lasts for a while. It's not, I don't know, it's not the most perfect way, but I haven't really thought of anything else that was kind of, you know, kind of eco-friendly and natural or whatever. I kind of didn't want to put like little plastic tags on there, keychains or something. So if you guys got an idea, like what I should put on there, like leave it in the comments. That'd be kind of cool. I could go for that. Yeah, nothing crazy about the pattern I'm doing here. This is one of those kind where you don't have to think about it much. it just changes direction when it gets down to the end. Like the first one goes off the edge and the next one doesn't. So relatively simple, don't have to think about it, which is important. Like if you want to like have that benefit of like that whole Zen feeling of, you know, being relaxed and doing your stuff, not having to check a pattern all the time to see what's next. These kind of patterns are where it's at. This is what most, you know, you'll end up reading about, you know, like, oh, it's so relaxing, it's so whatever. And for those people who live on patterns alone, you may never understand what that means, because there is nothing relaxing about trying to figure out a complex pattern that you don't understand. And if you do this long enough and you start to get the general gist of how knotting and stuff can go, then some of those complex patterns, you'll see what the person who made it, what their intent was. Like, oh, so yeah, it's just following a simple, you know, rules or whatever. And yeah, then basically you just use the pattern to tell you which order to put the strings in. After that, you can run with it. And that's why I teach what I teach, is I'm hoping that I can help a bunch of you to be able to just pick up string and run with it and have fun and enjoy that peaceful relaxation that I get from making bracelets. Because it's a great way for me to kind of calm myself down. I'm a pretty hyper person in general, and this is what I do to unwind. That's why you'll even see there's pictures of me on vacation with a clipboard in hand sitting at the beach, because, you know, just sitting there doing nothing is a little bit too slow for me. So this is how I like to spend some time. So you can see, just moving right along with the progress, I'm down to, like I said, when you get to the bottom of the thing, it changes direction. And then obviously there'll be a dot in the center. And then I start closing those back up again. Real super simple. And this one here is the string is doubled up, obviously. The other one will be a single. And that way I can be able to gauge for either. If I'm trying to, perhaps, I typically wouldn't make a bag out of it being at a single thickness, but I would certainly, if I was trying to create something like, say, my card holder, right? I knew what size I wanted the card holder to be. With these, I would be able to calculate out exactly the number of strings needed to be able to produce that, which is exactly how I did it. So, you know, there's a whole lot of uses, a whole lot of reasons why you would, you know, potentially want something to help gauge the strings that you're using. So, and I suspect over time, this whole little thing that I have here is going to be full of string. So that's why I really need to find a good way of labeling it, because I've got some string coming from the United States. I'm going to want to add that in here as well. I've got some strings coming from somewhere else. I don't remember where she lives, but I've got strings coming in from all different directions. And yeah, it'll definitely be a benefit down the road to be able to have all of that. And I would just, you know, I would supply you with all like the numbers for this stuff, but your suppliers might be different than mine. I think the only one that could be a consistent would be maybe, say, the DMC. But beyond that, you know, who knows where you're getting your string from. So, or, you know, like I said, you can do pearl cottons, you can do the crochet thread, you can do, you can take regular thread, and if you get one of those little machines that they have for making like the ropes for model shipbuilding, you can take regular thread and put like 8 little bits of thread together and end up with something kind of like a single bit of embroidery floss, which I've done that before as well. And that turns out kind of neat because if you want, you can actually blend the colors. You could have like 8 different colors of thread going in together, all wound together to make one. So like say if it's 8 different shades of red, when you look at it in the knots and stuff, it'll still be a red, but it'll kind of have an interesting, well, kind of like how this one is. You know, this is, I got a pink and a purple here. You can see bits of both of those colors kind of shining through. Imagine like 8 different little threads all kind of trying to shine through. It's a really fun effect. Plus with those the little thread, there is a glow in the dark you can buy. So you can make your own glow in the dark floss. And way less expensive, just way more tedious, and it's not soft because when you wind it, it ends up like a rope. So if you look really, really closely at a lot of ropes, it's like a twisted thing going down it. So as your hands slide across the strings, it's rough, like a guitar string or something, right? And so you'll want to put like a band-aids or something to kind of protect yourself, because otherwise you will wear your skin thin and become painful after a while, which is kind of why you don't see me using it a lot. Although I really kind of want to. I really like some of the effects. This bracelet was made out of that stuff, and the really light colors in it glow in the dark. And I've been wearing it probably for more than a year now. Shows very little sign of wearing out, and so that's pretty awesome. It's natural fiber, so that's awesome. It's just difficult to work with, which is less than awesome. So you can see I come down to where the thing ends, bounce it back the other direction. It's essentially the other part of a zigzag. If you were to like just do from here to here, it would be a zigzag. Actually, it's a lot like the pattern that's off my clipboard or my my traveler notebook bag. Except for I'm not going to be going that far into it. I'm just making this little sampler bit. Yeah, I think it'd be kind of neat to see like how many different kinds of strings you could have all together like this, you know, a whole little catalog of potential stuff you might want to use. Could be really handy. Like, so the red, blue, and orange bag that I did for my wife, where it's basically like it's a circular bag. It was like to really show off the bases, I made it the circular bit on the sides. That one was made to a very specific dimension, so that way I could be able to fit embroidery hoops on the inside. The wooden rings. So the reason for that was I wanted to be able to hold the circle to a really good, clean circle to be able to give it the best shape possible. And so in order to make that happen, I had to, you know, take the string, go do the math, find out the exact number of strings, figure out then from there what kind of pattern I could use based on the number that it would take to make that. And yeah, so before I even had a pattern, I had to know the number of strings. And then from there I was like, okay, I can divide that into 3 colors, and I can, let's see what I can do with that. And that's how that one came about. And as a result, I was able to use the wooden things on the inside. And that is why it came out like such a really, really nice circle. And yeah, and some of the bigger bags and stuff, if I want to have a good circular base, the spiral giveaway bag from like 5 years ago, that too was made to be the size of an embroidery hoop. And mind you, they come in a whole host of variety of sizes, like lots. So there's one to be able to match up to what like pretty much any bag you wanted to do. So if you're thinking, you know, oh, but I want something, you know, really big, you know, well, there's probably a ring for that as well. And there's some that are like an oval shape. So you could do like, if you're trying to make the bag deliberately less round and kind of weird like that, that could totally work. In fact, not only could it work, I think it could actually be really, really cool. Not sure quite how I would do it. If I would do it like with the shapes, like how I did the wife's bag like that, or if I would try to do like a really strange spiral. But yeah, it's totally a possibility, right? So, like this whole making bags like that, as far as I'm concerned, it's really in its infancy, because there's not a lot of people who tie knots that are still actually doing this kind of stuff, right? They're still just making bracelets and whatever, and there's thousands and thousands of people doing that. But as far as like making bags, yeah, the number is way, way smaller. And I suspect over time, as more people pick it up and more people watch these videos, that we will discover new things, you know, that were never considered before, and try new things and make some really cool stuff. At least that's my hopes. I hope that I inspire people to try new stuff. And then you guys can share it with me, and then I can try out new things. Let's see. Put it like this so I can kind of see where the pattern goes. So the red one was the outer one like this, came all the way in, and it kind of went through the whole cycle. Cool. Actually, I'll go ahead and bring these down. So I think for this video, I think we're only going to do this one, and I'll just do the smaller one off camera, because I'm not really able to think of a whole lot to talk about, despite having, you know, been talking for a while now. I have no idea how long it's been, but for a while. And I hope that you guys can learn something from this. Maybe you'll make, you know, these kind of bits for yourself. They don't all have to be strung together, I suppose. You could have like a key ring or a carabiner or something to put them all on. It'd be perhaps a little bit easier. Although, if you say like have a carabiner or whatever, you run the risk of somebody taking one off for whatever reason and losing it, which means you'd have to make another one. This way, you'd have to lose the whole thing. So wait, is that better? I don't know. Maybe not better. But, you know, like I was saying, this is something that I will keep and I will use, not every day, but when I do use it, it's pretty priceless. It's something I definitely can't get that information otherwise. And we're not talking about like just using a ruler. I use a set of calipers for the measurement, so I can get really pretty accurate, because you'd be surprised. Even just a 1/2 millimeter, you know, multiplied over a number of times will add up and give you something unexpected. And if you're trying to make it so it fits tightly around a wooden ring, you need it down to within, say, 1 millimeter or so in order to get that to work properly. So that's kind of why this is relatively significant. This green-orange combination, that's kind of fun. I might actually have to do something with that. Like a bracelet or something. It's kind of neat. Yeah, if you guys have never done this before, where you take 2 colors and mix them into, like, you know, a doubled up string, it's definitely a lot of fun. It kind of gives it almost a variegated effect, except it's really not variegated. It's just different. I did a whole great big huge bracelet once with all the strings matched up like that. And when you looked at it, it kind of felt like it was difficult to focus on it. It felt like something really weird was happening. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, I think. I would definitely recommend at least trying it. See if it sells, see if it's something that you notice that people like. So you can see, almost got the first one all the way to the point. Yeah, and already I can see this is a lot smaller than that. All right, so if I were to mix those 2 strings together, I can expect that the whole thing will become really distorted. Although it might actually be a lot closer to the DMC. Let's take a look at that. Let me just bring this orange down, because now I'm curious. So, definitely like these colors. All right, let's take a look. Okay, weird. It is slightly, just slightly bigger, like a millimeter or 2 bigger than the DMC. And it is a millimeter or so smaller than the Chinese string. So sort of right in the middle there. So there you have it. In case you were ever wondering about the string, the neon stuff. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish this off camera and go ahead and create the links and stuff for this video and get this out to you guys. So until next time, don't get your strings in a bunch.